Hey there, my name is Joe Meadows, and in this video, I'm going to show you how you can record that you've installed an energy isolation as part of your task so that you can prove that that was done and that you followed all the correct procedures. Just had a cat make a really weird noise. Yeah. Okay, let's get started. So, if you're recording an isolation, what you're going to want to do first is come into your task. You can see that I've already done this, but basically we'll go back into the risk assessment. And as we work through our risk assessment, we're going to interact our activities. Our activities are going to recommend various hazards. And based on the hazards that we've chosen, we're going to have some required controls, recommended controls. And one of those is going to be isolations. So here you can see we've added some behaviors, we've added a couple work permits, and here as the last step, we have isolations. So when we come here, you're going to see you're going to see a list of all the current isolation plans for the work site where this task is taking place. So if you know there are maybe more plans than what you're seeing, there's a good chance that the isolation plan isn't here because it's for another work site. If you search for an isolation plan, and again, I know this is a very short list, but for many companies, this is dozens, if not hundreds of units long. What we're able to do is kind of search here. Coffee maker. Okay, there's no isolation for the coffee maker, so let's create a new plan. And we're able to do that here so we can see all the information, the location. We just saved that. And now we've added an isolation for the coffee maker. We can also add existing isolation plans. All we're doing here is selecting what we're going to isolate. The actual recording of the isolation is going to happen later. So here, what we can see is the various isolation plans. Some are drafts, some are already created. When we start the isolation, this one, you can see that an isolation plan has already been created. So there's multiple steps, and it's going to show us how to install this isolation. If you want to learn more about how to create one of these plans, there's a separate video on isolation plans that I'd encourage you to watch. So if we start this, it's going to show us all the information that's been entered in the plan. You can see this one is actually quite short, not a lot of details. So when I press done, what I'm saying is that the first step of this isolation has been installed. Again, ideally, you're getting a little bit more information than this, but we're able to click those off and say that those are done. Once we do all that, it's going to indicate that this isolation has been properly installed. If we go to one where we don't have an existing plan, this is what we call an isolation on the fly. So we just created this one for coffee maker. And here you can see that the flow is a little bit different. We don't see the list of those steps. So what that means we're able to do is we can actually just record the steps as we go. We understand that you're professionals, you know how to lock out your gear. So we give you this opportunity to just kind of record it on the fly. And so what you might say is the first step is electrical. If you're able to, it's really awesome if you can take a photo of the installed lock. That really helps create a better record for anyone who might come after you to either install this or review the isolation that you've installed. And then basically what you're able to do is you could press finish now if there was only one lock required for this particular piece of equipment, or we can add an additional step. So maybe we also have a hydraulic lock. We can do that. We could finish it now, or we could add another step if there were multiple steps. We have some customers that have over 100 steps for certain complicated isolations of things like flare booms. So here, now if we say finished, we're going to get some prompts here because we understand that you're just kind of tracking this as we go. So we give you a little warning to say, when you finish this, the system's going to think that you've fully isolated this equipment. So please make sure that you've done that correctly. So now when we come back, we can see that both of those pieces of equipment are isolated. Again, fuel tank, this is another one that's on the fly, so we won't dive into that right now. That's the basics of installing isolations. Again, these can be really complicated when people create really complex isolation plans. To show you a quick example of what that might look like, if I create a new task in a different location, so we're going to move from the executive building to the nuclear power plant. I'll create a task called test for isolations. When I move through this risk assessment, and I'll just create a kind of a dummy task here so we can move to that last step. When we look at this isolation list, you can see there's many, many isolation plans. And again, I just want to reiterate, this list is specific to each work site. Certain people are able to come and clone these. If you have certain pieces of equipment that are on multiple sites, you can actually copy the plans. But that's just something to think about. So if I select this particular isolation plan, I didn't add any behavioral controls, so it's not actually going to let me proceed. That's the whole purpose of the system. Okay, so now we're done. We review our risk assessment. We accept this. You can see here that if we were to install this isolation, somebody's actually created a really great plan here that's going to show me specifically the equipment that I'm looking for. It's going to give me all the details on the electrical system. It's going to tell me exactly what to do. So this is kind of like the perfect example of what we would love to see as you're building out an isolation plan. You can see how much more powerful it is for somebody as they're trying to install an isolation. You can really give them all the information that they want. So I could read through this, get my lock installed, and press done. If the person was to enable the verification photos, it would also give me the ability to take that photo where we could actually mirror the image that was provided to us and make sure that we've installed it correctly. So that's kind of it. Again, here we have a very simple second step. We press done. And now that we've finished all the steps, it's indicating that our piece of gear is isolated. And if you're ever curious to look at all the installed isolations, it's as simple as going to our company page, coming down here to isolations, and here we can see all the isolations that we've created. Here's our coffee maker. We could look at the isolation history and see who did what at what time. Same thing goes for our other one. So we can look at the history. We can see everything that's going on. If we had another person doing another task, so again, we've got all these ones installed. If we were to come in and second job on emergency generator, we do give you the ability to install what we call a second layer isolation. So if you were to start your risk assessment, apologies, I'm going to dig through this pretty quickly. And here we were going to install, got to change my location. Okay, nuclear power plant. Thank you for your patience. Okay, nuclear power plant. Let's do our risk assessment again. So we'll work through this. And now we've got all these. And so I'm going to use that same isolation plan. So I'm telling the system that I want to do this one again. When I jump into this and I install my isolation, what I'm able to do is go through all the steps again, install the isolation as it was. And now when I go into my isolation history, we can see all that stuff here. So we're able to put those multiple layers, and it's going to continue to indicate that the piece of equipment is isolated. Hopefully this made some sense. It's the end of the day. I don't know if I'm all that clear, but regardless, hope this makes sense to you. We hope it's helpful. If you have any questions or ways you think it could be better, please let us know. And otherwise, have a great day. Thanks so much.